The moment the phone rang, Rachel Marin felt the universe tilt, as if gravity itself had decided she had suffered enough and now wanted to test how much more a human heart could bear. 10 months had passed since her twin daughters vanished on what was supposed to be a healing cruise, a reward for survival, for perseverance, for single motherhood done without complaint. Yet time had not healed her, it had only hollowed her out. The living room around her was frozen in grief. Flyers with smiling 8-year-old faces, police reports stacked like unspoken prayers, sympathy cards unopened because opening them would mean admitting the world had already moved on. When Detective Mace Alvarez's name appeared on her phone, hope surged like a reflex she no longer trusted. His voice was different, controlled, careful, edged with dread. A suitcase had washed ashore. Inside were remains. Vocabulary note. Remains refers respectfully to what is left of a human body after death, often used in forensic or formal contexts. As Rachel listened, the concept of time collapsed. Past, present, and future fused into a single unbearable moment. The cruise flashed back in fragments. Laughter by the pool, a 5-minute phone call, an absence that became permanent. This chapter of her life teaches a brutal universal truth. Uncertainty is often more painful than tragedy itself, because the human mind cannot grieve what it cannot name. In English, the idiom living in limbo describes exactly this state, being trapped between hope and despair. Rachel had lived there for 10 months. And now, as she prepared to fly toward an answer she feared more than ignorance, we are forced to ask ourselves, is closure always a gift, or is it sometimes another form of loss we must learn to survive? The forensic room in North Carolina was cold, sterile, and mercilessly honest. No comforting metaphors existed here, only steel tables, latex gloves, and truth. When the suitcase was opened, Rachel's world narrowed to a single red Minnie Mouse shirt. Recognition struck harder than any scream. This was Millie's. Vocabulary note. Recognition is the moment when the mind accepts something as familiar and real, often accompanied by intense emotion. The medical examiner spoke in clinical language, asphyxiation, no defensive wounds, terms designed to distance professionals from horror, yet each word pierced Rachel with surgical precision. But inside the suitcase was also something else, a Zippo lighter engraved with initials that did not belong to a child. This was the first crack in the wall of mystery. History reminds us that many major criminal cases, from the Lindbergh kidnapping to modern cold cases, were broken open by a single overlooked object. Evidence, no matter how small, carries stories. The ocean, often romanticized as freedom or renewal, had instead become a messenger. Philosophically, this moment confronts us with the idea that truth often arrives wrapped in cruelty, and courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to stand in its presence. For English learners, note the phrase, "the truth surfaced," an idiom meaning hidden facts become known, perfectly mirrored by a suitcase literally surfacing from the sea. As Rachel stood on the beach where grief met salt water, we must ask, when truth finally reaches us, do we have the strength to listen without breaking? Hope returned not gently, but violently. On a ferry terminal soaked in tension, Rachel saw a child in the back seat of a stranger's car and knew. Recognition again, but this time it carried life. Rayleigh was alive. The pursuit that followed unfolded with terrifying speed. Suspects fleeing, police converging, a child breaking free and screaming, "Mom." In that single word was everything language exists for: identity, safety, belonging. Vocabulary note. Belonging refers to the emotional need to be accepted and protected, a core human requirement. But survival came at a cost. Rayleigh's body bore signs of malnutrition, restraint, and forced silence. Historically, survivor testimonies, from war children to trafficking victims, teach us that resilience does not erase trauma, it coexists with it. The arrest of Douglas Carnes revealed a calculated predator exploiting systems, disguises, and human trust. This chapter exposes a harsh societal truth. Evil often hides behind ordinariness. Carnes was not a monster in appearance. He was a man who blended in. For English learners, consider the phrase wolves in sheep's clothing, people who appear harmless but intend harm. Rachel's rage, grief, and relief collided, forming a new identity. Not just a grieving mother, but a protector who survived the impossible. As we witness this reunion shadowed by loss, we must reflect, can justice ever balance the scales when innocence has been permanently stolen? The hospital became a quiet battlefield. For drips, whispered nightmares, flinches at light, these were the invisible scars of captivity. Doctors spoke of recovery in careful terms, emphasizing that the body heals faster than the mind. Vocabulary note: trauma refers to deep psychological injury caused by extreme distress. Rachel learned that love could not erase what had happened, but it could anchor what came next. Detective Alvarez revealed the wider network, other children rescued, a system dismantled piece by piece. Historically, many criminal empires fall not through force, but through one person deciding to speak. Evan's confession echoed this truth. In English, the idiom, the domino effect, describes how one action triggers many others, a single confession leading to multiple rescues. Rachel faced the hardest conversation of her life, explaining death to a child who had already seen too much. Yet within that pain was honesty, and within honesty was healing. This chapter teaches a universal lesson. Healing is not a straight line. It loops, stumbles, and sometimes retreats, but it still moves forward. As Rachel sat through the night, holding a hand that trembled in sleep, we are invited to consider, do we allow ourselves and others the patience to heal without demanding quick strength? Morning light filtered through hospital curtains, indifferent yet persistent. Dawn does not ask permission to arrive. It simply comes. Rachel understood now that survival did not mean forgetting. Millie would always exist in memory, in love, in absence. Rayleigh's future would require therapy, courage, and time, but it would exist. Language itself became part of healing, naming fears, telling stories, reclaiming voice. Vocabulary note: reclaim means to take back something that was taken or lost, identity, confidence, or hope. Historically, societies heal through storytelling, and individuals do too. This is why education matters, why English learning matters. Words give shape to pain so it does not consume us whole. Rachel whispered promises not because everything was okay, but because hope is an action, not a feeling. The ocean still moved. The world still turned. And somewhere between grief and gratitude, a new life began, one that honored the lost and protected the living. As the sun climbed higher, we are left with a final reflection meant not to comfort, but to empower. After unimaginable loss, will we choose to let pain define us, or will we let meaning rise from it, like dawn after the longest night?